Okay, so this is going to be a quick tutorial on single screen multiplayer games and how to work the controls, just specifically on controls. So I've got a just an empty 2D scene here in Unity, and a couple assets from Glitch the Game to sort of make this thing look like something useful, although we really don't need them. So I'll just put some ground here, and then I've got my two characters, a star and an apple. So star versus apple is what we're going to have. And again, we're not doing health bars or combos or any of that kind of stuff. Those are in other videos. But for this one, all we're going to do is just show how you can get independent controls working on them using the same script. So here's our star. I am going to just rename this up here to, we'll call it player 1. And I'm going to change my order and layer to 10 just so it sticks out from our background. And we're going to add a controller script to this thing that we're going to write. So create C# script, and I'll call it player controller. And we'll open that thing up. And it's just going to be a movement controller script. Bring that over here. And we've done this kind of stuff before. So if you've been following through some of the other tutorials, this will look familiar. So usually we have a speed, so public float speed equals 0.1 f, and I'm going to just make this, we're just going to move left and right. For this one, we're not going to go too crazy with the controls because the point is having unique controls for each player. So inside of our update, we would do something like if input.get key code.left arrow, like this. Then we would say something like vector2 position equals transform dot position, and then position dot x minus equals speed, and then transform dot position equals position. All right, and then we'll copy and paste this a little bit with the right arrow, and we will add our speed. So again, we've done this kind of stuff before. We just get our key, and we're going to update our position based on if we're doing the right arrow or the left arrow. And if I go back into our scene, and I click on player 1, and I make sure I assign the script to it, so I drag it over here. And now if I hit go, maybe, right and left are working. Right? So my star is going right and left based on whichever key I'm pressing, which is a good thing. I hate that blue background, so I'm just going to change the color of my camera just a little bit because that blue really bothers me. So now it'll look much nicer. There we go. So now I'm moving back and forth, and that is very good. Okay, so let's say we want to add an apple to our scene, which is going to be player 2. So if I drag this thing out, I'm going to scale it up a little bit just so it's roughly the same size. I'll rename it to player 2, and I'll also change the order and layer to 10 so it stands out from this background. And if I hit go, let's just make sure we understand what's going on here. I move my star left and right, and the apple isn't moving because the script is only attached to player 1. So one thing that we could do is we could make a whole nother script called player 2 control and copy and paste this thing, but that isn't the best idea, right? We want to reuse as much code as possible. But what happens if I drag this C# script over to our apple? Now when I hit play, I'm hitting left and right, and they're both going left and right. But what I really want to have happen is I want A and D keys to control this apple, and left and right to control the star. That way, player 1 and player 2 have completely different controls. So how do we do that within our code? Like we have this business here, but if I say, okay, this is attached to one object, right? And so it's hard to know if I'm looking for the A or if I'm looking for left because it's all connected to one object. So what we're going to do is we will make two functions. And I will say one is going to be void check player 1 input. And then another one will be void check player 2 inputs. I'll cut this stuff out of update and put it into player 1, right? Because we know that works. And then inside of update, I will just say check player one inputs like this. All right, so all I really did was move this stuff down into here. And now if we run, it's going to be the same thing. We didn't change any functionality with that, going back and forth. Maybe what we want to do is copy and paste this stuff into check player 2 inputs, but instead of this, we are going to say key code A and key code .d. Right? And there are ways to make this code a little bit cleaner, but for right now, I just want to get the point across about how we want to do this. So now we have check player 2 inputs. Now we're checking for A and D, and if it's A, we're going to move left, and if it's D, we're going to move right. And so I'm going to add this thing up here, check player 2 inputs. All right. So now when we run, if I go left and right with my arrows, they're both moving. And if I do A and D, they're both moving. Right? So we're getting closer. We have controls, left and right, A and D, but they're both doing everything. And so what we need to do is, inside of our code here, we need to make sure, we need to identify if we're player 1 or if we're player 2. So one way we could do that is to say this, public int player number equals 1. So we can say inside of here, we can say if player number equals 1, then we'll check player 1 inputs. Else, check player 2. All right, so this is the idea. This is where we're deciding, are we player 1 or are we player 2? If we're player 1, we're going to do this. If we're player 2, we will do this. So, and then we'll come down through all this code, and let's just see if it works. And some of you may be looking at this saying, well, there's much better ways to do it. And there are, and we'll talk about different ways to do it. But for right now, we're trying to get across the point of which player are you. And so if I run, what happens now? Same thing, right? Left and right, A and D. Oops, A and D don't do anything. But left and right do both of them. Reason is our script on player 1 is set to player number 1. Our script on player 2 is also set to player number 1. So if I set that thing to 2 now left and right moves the star, and A and D moves the apple. Right? Because we have this public variable here that's deciding which types of inputs we're going to look for. And so we could do other things, like we could figure out our player number. Instead of making it this global thing, we could find out what our name is and look at the last, if we're 100% sure we're being consistent in how we name these objects, we could look at the last character of this thing and say, okay, I'm 1 or I'm a 2. That would be one way. And then the other thing is, this is kind of bad, like with all this code duplicated just for these things. So we could create a couple variables that are, this is the left key, this is the right key, and then set them in, for example, inside of start, so that we would really only have one check inputs. But in the start method, we would actually set up what these values are. And that's another way to do it. So I think that makes sense. But there's multiple ways to do it. This way is the quickest way that I think I can demonstrate of how to do it. But like I said, there are the cleaner way is to set two variables. One would be what is your left key, what is your right key, and then you would have one player inputs. And doing it that way too allows you to have customized controls and not just be limited to whatever the defaults are. But that one isn't hard. Just takes a little bit of time to type it out. And maybe we'll do that one later, but I wanted to keep this video under 10 minutes, and we're quickly getting to 10 minutes. So anyways, that is a quick way of doing single screen multiplayer controls.